Caleb Moore had lived alone on the far edge of the valley for almost 7 years. His ranch sat between two low hills, a place where quiet mornings came easily and long evenings stretched like slow rivers. He had horses, a few cows, and a cabin that he kept clean and steady with his own hands. But inside those walls, the silence always felt heavier than the wooden beams that held the roof. Caleb was a good man, steady, honest and gentle, but loneliness had slowly become part of his daily life. When he worked in the barn, he worked alone. When he cooked for one. And when he sat on the porch at sunset watching the sky turn orange and purple, he often felt there was something missing that the land could not give him. One day, after much thinking, he decided to take a step he had never imagined before. He wrote to a matchmaker in the nearby town. He asked, in the most respectful words he could find, if she knew any woman who wanted a quiet life in the countryside. A woman who could share simple days, warm evenings, and honest work with a man who did not have many fancy things but had a loyal heart. A few weeks later, a letter came back with a name, Alina Ward. She lived in a town far away, worked in a clothing shop, and wanted a life where she could breathe fresh air and wake up to calm skies. She said she was tired of noise, tired of crowds, tired of feeling like a shadow among busy streets. They began exchanging letters. At first, they wrote small messages, simple details about their lives. But slowly, the letters grew longer, filled with hopes and questions. Alina told him she liked sunrises more than sunsets because sunrises felt like new beginnings. Caleb told her he liked sunsets more because they reminded him of peace. She liked to paint small flowers on paper. He liked carving wood when he had time. She liked warm tea. He liked strong coffee. Their differences made them laugh, even on paper. Over the next months, her letters started to sound less like messages to strangers and more like conversations. Between two people who were waiting to meet, Caleb kept each letter carefully in a wooden box he had carved. Alina wrote that she kept his letters in a small pouch she tied with a ribbon. One afternoon, as wind blew across the ranch and the birds circled slowly above the fields, Caleb received a new letter. Alina wrote that she had finally made her decision. She would come to him. She would travel across to towns and a long dirt road, and she would reach his ranch near sunset on the first day of the month. Caleb read the letter 3 times. His hands shook not with fear, but with excitement. He had never imagined that someone he had not yet met in person could make his heart feel alive again. He began preparing the cabin. He cleaned the windows until they shone. He fixed the porch steps so she would not trip. He spread fresh straw on the stable and washed the horses, though he knew she might not want to ride one right away. He went into town and bought blue fabric to sew curtains, because she had once written in a letter that she liked the color of clear skies. He even built a new wooden bed, strong and smooth, hoping she would sleep comfortably on her first night. As the day drew closer, Caleb became both nervous and happy. He woke early each morning, checking the trail, making sure everything was perfect. On the last day before she was to arrive, he brought flowers from a small patch behind the house. They were not perfect flowers, but they were warm in color yellow and white, like gentle sunlight. Then the day finally came. The morning sky was soft and bright. Caleb fed the animals, swept the porch one more time, and placed the flowers in a little jar near the doorway. He kept checking the clock, even though he knew she would not arrive until close to sunset. Still, his excitement made every minute feel important. Around midday, clouds began to gather. At first, Caleb thought it was nothing unusual, but slowly the sky darkened, and the wind brushed harder against the trees. By late afternoon, it turned into a heavy storm. Rain fell in thick sheets, and thunder rolled across the valley like distant drums. Caleb grew worried. He knew the trail well. In bad weather, it could get slippery or muddy. He hoped she had found shelter somewhere safe, maybe in a small rest cabin along the road. Still, he felt uneasy. He set a bright lantern in the window, hoping she would see it through the rain if she came near. As evening approached, the storm grew louder. Lightning flashed behind the hills, lighting them for a split second before leaving everything dark again. Caleb kept pacing from the window to the door, from the door to the porch. as if movement would calm the worry inside him. An hour passed, then another. Still no sign of her? Finally, when the rain slowed just a little from heavy pounding to a softer fall, Caleb stepped outside. He covered himself with a thick coat and lit another lantern. He followed the muddy trail leading toward the cabin. He hoped maybe she had reached the ranch before the storm got too strong and had gone inside to wait. When he reached the cabin door, he noticed something strange. The door was not fully closed. It was pushed slightly open by the wind. Caleb felt his heartbeat quicken. Alina might be inside, but something felt off. There were wet footprints on the porch, small ones, not his. The sight made his chest tighten. He slowly pushed the door open and stepped inside. He expected to see Alina warming herself near the fire, or perhaps sitting on the new bed he made. Maybe she would be shy, holding her hands together, unsure of how to greet him in person, but instead, what he saw made the lantern shake in his hand. Alina was hanging from a rope, fixed to one of the rafters. The sight made him freeze. The lantern light trembled as if the air itself had become unsteady. Her feet were a little above the ground. Her hair was wet from the storm. Her body moved slightly as if she were fighting for balance. Caleb felt his mind collapse for a moment. It looked terrible wrong, something no one should ever see. But then his eyes noticed something else. Her hands were not tied. Her fingers were moving weakly. Her knees were bent, as if she was trying to push upward. This was not what it looked like. He rushed forward, heart pounding so hard he could barely breathe. He grabbed her by the waist to lift her gently, taking the pressure off her neck. She let out a faint gasp. A tiny breath proof she was alive, with one hand supporting her and the other cutting the rope with the small knife he carried in his pocket. Caleb freed her from the snare. She fell softly into his arms, her head resting on his shoulder, her breath shaky but present. Caleb felt his whole body tremble, not from fear, but from relief. She was alive. Whatever had happened, she was alive. He carried her to the bed carefully, placing her down with the gentleness of a man holding something priceless. Her eyes fluttered open for a moment, but she was too weak to speak. Caleb knelt beside her, trying to understand what he had just seen. His eyes went back to the rafter. And then it made sense. It was an old trap and old snare left by the previous owner of the ranch. Caleb remembered now. The man had once mentioned that he used to set small traps inside the cabin to scare off thieves many years ago, but he had said they were removed long ago. Caleb had forgotten about that comment because he had never imagined a rope or snare could be hidden so high. Out of sight, when Alina entered the cabin, cold, soaked. Looking for a place to hang her coat, she must have pulled the wrong rope or leaned against the wrong beam. The trap must have snapped down suddenly, catching her by the shoulders and neck. She had probably tried to keep her balance, but the wet floor and heavy coat made it difficult. The rope tightened. She couldn't reach the knot. The storm noise outside hid any sound she made, and Caleb arrived just in time. He checked her pulse again. Slow, but steady. "Thank you," she whispered, barely audible. Caleb felt his eyes sting, not with tears of sadness, but with the overwhelming wave of relief that washed through him. "You're safe now," he whispered back. Outside, the storm began to ease. The wind softened. The thunder grew distant. Inside the cabin, Caleb stayed by her side, holding her hand gently, promising himself that this cabin his home would never again hold a danger like that. He had waited for his bride with hope. He had found her in a terrifying moment. But she was alive, and that meant their story was not ending. It was only beginning. For a long moment after Caleb freed Alina from the old snare, the cabin stayed filled with a heavy silence. The rain outside tapped softly on the roof, no longer loud and rough like before. The lantern's warm glow spread across the wooden walls, giving the room a calm softness that felt strange after the shock he had just witnessed. Caleb sat beside the bed, watching Alina rest. Her breathing had steadied, but she was still pale from exhaustion. A strand of her wet hair lay across her forehead, and her clothes clung to her from the storm's cold rain. Caleb covered her with a dry blanket and placed another near her feet. He did everything slowly and carefully, as if one wrong move might disturb her fragile state. He could not stop thinking about what had happened. He had invited her into his life, prepared everything to make her feel safe and welcome. And instead, she had almost been harmed by something he should have known about. The weight of that realization pressed hard on his heart. As he sat quietly, Elena's fingers moved a little. Then her eyes opened slowly. First one, then the other, like she was waking from a long, confused dream. Caleb leaned forward, relieved. "Elena, you're awake," he said softly. She blinked a few times, trying to make sense of where she was. Her voice came out weak but steady. I'm in the cabin." "Yes," Caleb replied. "You're safe now." She looked around, confused, then her eyes widened with memory. The rope. Her breath caught, but Caleb gently touched her hand. "It's all right," he said. "It was an accident. An old trap. You're safe now." Lena closed her eyes again for a moment. She breathed slowly, calming herself. When she opened them again, she tried to sit up, but Caleb shook his head. "Take your time," he said gently. "You've been through something frightening. You should rest." She nodded, then spoke with effort. "I thought I was alone. I didn't know you were out." "In the storm." Caleb took a deep breath, steadying his own voice. "I was worried when you didn't arrive earlier. When the rain slowed, I came to check. I didn't expect to find." He stopped, unable to finish the sentence. Elena reached for his hand weakly. "You saved me," she whispered. Caleb looked away for a moment, his throat tightening. "I'm just thankful I got here in time." Elena's eyes softened as she studied the man who would soon become her husband. Even though they had never met in person before today, she could already see the sincerity in him. His presence felt steady and safe. Even after such a frightening moment, after a few quiet minutes, Elena gathered her strength to speak again. "I came during the worst of the storm," she explained. "The door was open. I thought you might be inside. When I stepped in, the room seemed dark, and the rain was loud on the roof. I tried to take off my coat. I reached for something to hang it on." Caleb nodded, urging her to continue, but gently. "I must have touched the wrong rope," she said. "Something snapped above me. The floor was wet and I lost my balance. The rope tightened so fast, I couldn't tee free myself. I tried to stand on my toes, but the ground was slippery." Her voice grew shaky, but Caleb squeezed her hand reassuringly. "You're safe now," he reminded her again. "I know," she whispered. "Thanks to you." Lena rested again, breathing slowly. Caleb stayed beside her, feeling a mixture of worry and relief. He could not imagine what she had gone through. Alone in a strange cabin, caught in a trap that should never have existed. After a while, Elena opened her eyes again. "How long?" "Was I there?" she asked. "Not long," Caleb assured her. "But even a short time was too long." He tried to lighten the words with a gentle smile, but his eyes still showed concern. Elena gave a small, tired smile in return. "I didn't think my first day here would go like this." Caleb lowered his head slightly. "Nor did I. I wanted everything to be perfect for you, I feel." "Please don't blame yourself," Elena interrupted softly. "You didn't know the trap was there," Caleb sighed. "I should have checked every part of the cabin. I should have made sure it was safe. It's my responsibility." Her look was firm but kind. "You didn't set it? You didn't expect it. You can't hold yourself responsible for something you never knew about." Caleb was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he said, "I'll make sure nothing like this ever happens again." Elena nodded gently. "I believe you." He stood, adjusted the blanket around her, and then looked toward the rafter where the rope still hung loosely. "I'm taking that thing down now," he said. "It has no place here." Lena watched as Caleb climbed onto a chair and carefully removed the remains of the old trap. He worked slowly, the lantern casting long shadows across the cabin walls. When he was done, he set the broken pieces outside under the porch roof so they would not be inside the cabin anymore. When he came back, he sat down beside Elena again. She was resting more peacefully now, her breathing steady. The color in her face had returned a little. "Would you like some warm tea?" Caleb asked gently. A small smile touched her lips. "Tea? Yes, that would be nice." Caleb nodded and moved to the small kitchen corner. He boiled water, prepared the tea, and brought it in a wooden cup he had carved long ago. He held the cup while she took small sips, watching carefully to make sure she was comfortable. The warmth of the tea seemed to ease her. "It tastes good," she whispered. "I'm glad," he replied. "You need something warm after being in the storm." She looked at him thoughtfully. "You're very gentle," she said quietly. "Your letters sounded that way, but seeing it feels real." Caleb felt his face warm slightly. "I just want you to feel safe here," he said honestly. "You make me feel safe," Alina replied. Her voice was soft but certain. For a moment, Caleb didn't know what to say. He looked down at his hands before speaking again. "When I saw you, you looked so helpless. I've never felt fear like that." Alina's hand moved slightly toward his. He took it gently. "I'm sorry I frightened you," she said. "You didn't do anything wrong?" Caleb answered quickly. "You came here with trust. You walked into a cabin you thought would welcome you, and it will moving forward. I promise it will." Alina looked around the cabin again, now seeing it with clearer eyes. The walls were smooth and clean. The new bed stood solidly. The flowers he had placed earlier rested in a small jar, brightening the room. Everything spoke of care and thoughtfulness. The storm outside had faded to a gentle drizzle. The air felt warmer, calmer. After a while, Alina spoke again. "I want to tell you something," she said. "When I traveled here, I was nervous. I didn't know what kind of man you would be. But when I stepped on this land and saw the cabin lights, I felt something good. And even though what happened was frightening, the way you helped me, it told me everything I needed to know about you." Caleb swallowed softly. "I'm grateful for your trust," he said. "You earned it." "Shh," she replied simply. The kindness in her words settled into Caleb's heart like a soft blanket. He felt a gentle warmth spread through him, a warmth he hadn't known in years. After more rest and tea, Lena gathered enough strength to sit up properly. Caleb brought her fresh clothes he had bought in town in case she needed them. She changed slowly behind the curtain he set up for privacy. When she came out, her face looked brighter and less tired. Caleb prepared the fireplace with new wood and lit a soft flame. The cabin filled with warm light and a gentle crackling sound. He pulled a chair closer to the fire and helped Alina sit near it to warm herself fully. "Are you cold?" he asked. "A little," she said, smiling faintly. "But better now." Caleb sat beside her, not too close, giving her space but staying near enough to be comforting. He told her about the ranch, about the hills, about the small creek nearby where the water always ran clear. He spoke slowly, letting her picture the land she had chosen as her new home. Alina listened with calm eyes. She asked him small questions and he answered with warmth. The earlier fear was slowly fading away, placed by something gentler, something that felt like the beginning of trust. After a long and peaceful conversation, Lena looked at him again. "Thank you for staying by my side," she said softly. "You didn't leave even for a moment." Caleb shook his head. "I couldn't. I wanted to be here." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The fire whispered quietly. The rain outside stopped completely. Alina slowly smiled a real, gentle smile. "Caleb," she said, "I'm glad I came here. Even after everything that happened, I'm glad." Caleb felt his heart soften. "I'm glad too," he said. The storm had brought fear and danger, but it had also brought them together in a way neither could have expected. They were strangers only a few hours ago, meeting for the first time in the middle of a frightening accident. Yet now, sitting by the fire, it felt closer than two people normally would on their first day. As the night grew deeper and the cabin warmed, Caleb knew something important. Their story was no longer just a planned arrangement. It was becoming something real, and it was only the beginning. The morning after the storm, sunlight slipped gently through the cabin windows. It fell across the wooden floor in soft, golden strips, warming the space where only fear had lived the night before. Birds sang outside as if trying to wash away the memory of the storm. The valley looked clean, fresh, and new. Alina woke slowly, feeling stronger than she had the day before. The blanket was warm, and the fire was now only glowing embers. When she turned her head, she found Caleb sitting by the table, carving a small piece of wood. He looked calm but tired, as if he had stayed awake longer than he should have. When he noticed her awake, he stood quickly. "Good morning," he said with a gentle smile. "How do you feel?" "A little sore," Alina answered carefully, "but much better." Caleb nodded with relief. "I'm glad." "You scared me yesterday." Alina managed a soft smile. "I scared myself more." They shared a quiet laugh, the kind that breaks tension slowly but surely. It felt like the first true moment of peace since they had met. Caleb brought warm water so she could wash her face. Then he prepared a simple breakfast spread, eggs, and warm tea. Alina ate slowly, appreciating every small thing: the clean taste of water, the warmth of the food, the way the sunlight touched the wooden table. After she finished, she looked around the cabin with new eyes. The fear she had felt was fading. The walls didn't seem frightening anymore. The roof didn't look dark or dangerous. Instead, the cabin felt like a place where something new could grow, something gentle. Caleb noticed her looking around. "If anything here makes you uncomfortable," he said softly, "I'll fix it." Lena turned to him. "No, everything is fine. It feels warm now." Caleb's shoulders relaxed. "Good. That means a lot." They talked for a while, sharing small details of their pasts. Caleb told her about the day he first bought the ranch, how he had stood on the porch and imagined a future he was too shy to reach for. Alina told him about the town she had lived in, and how the noise never let her rest. As they spoke, they realized something important. Both had left old lives behind because they wanted something quieter, something more honest. They wanted a life where small moments mattered more than fancy things. After breakfast, Caleb said, "We should go into town today. We need to tell the sheriff about the trap." "It's best to document it," Alina agreed. She felt strong enough to step outside. She wanted to face the world again. Caleb saddled his gentle horse, Daisy, the calmest animal he owned. "She walks slowly," he told her. "She won't frighten you." Lena placed a hand on the horse's neck. Daisy snorted softly, leaning into her touch as if welcoming her. Alina smiled at the kindness of the animal. Caleb helped her onto the horse carefully, making sure she was steady before climbing up behind her. The morning air was cool, carrying the smell of wet earth and pine trees. The storm had washed everything clean. As they rode toward town, Alina leaned slightly into him for balance. Caleb tried not to let his heart race, but he felt a warmth in his chest he had never felt before. For the first time in many years, he wasn't riding alone. The trail to town was long but smooth. Along the way, Alina asked questions about the land, the hills, the creek, the old windmill, the wildflowers. Caleb answered each one with quiet pride. He loved the land, and he was glad she showed interest in it. When they reached the small town, people glanced curiously at the pair. Some recognized Caleb, the quiet rancher who rarely came to town unless he needed supplies. Seeing him with a woman made them smile politely at the sheriff's office. Caleb explained everything to Sheriff Turner, a calm, experienced man with a kind face. Alina stayed close, listening quietly. When Caleb finished the story, the sheriff scratched his chin. "Old Jack's traps again," he muttered. "He used to set snares everywhere, barn, attic, even under the porch. Claimed it kept thieves away." "I thought he removed them when he sold the ranch," Caleb said. "He probably removed most," the sheriff replied. "But that old cabin has many hidden corners." "I'm glad the lady wasn't seriously hurt," Lena nodded. "It was frightening, but I'm all right now." The sheriff smiled reassuringly. "You're brave, miss. Most folks would be too shaken to come to town the next day." Alina smiled shyly. Caleb felt a quiet pride in her strength. When they left the sheriff's office, they walked around the town square for a bit. Caleb bought fresh fruit for her and a small pouch of spices she mentioned liking in one of her letters. Alina looked at everything with calm interest, noticing how different this small town was from her old life. After a short while, Caleb asked, "Are you tired?" "Not too much," she replied. "This feels nice." But he still guided her gently back toward the horse, wanting to make sure she didn't push herself too hard as they rode back to the ranch. The valley looked even more peaceful than before. The storm clouds were gone, leaving a wide blue sky. Sunlight glowed on the wet leaves and grass, making the world shine softly. When they returned to the cabin, Alina stepped inside with a steady breath. The previous night's fear no longer controlled her. The cabin smelled warm from the morning fire, and the flowers Caleb had put in the jar still brightened the room. Caleb watched her quietly. "How does it feel now?" he asked, unsure. Alina touched the wall gently. "It feels like a place I can make into a home," she said. Caleb's heart warmed at her words. That afternoon they worked together. Caleb fixed the attic rafters, removing every old piece of rope or wood that looked unsafe. Alina sat nearby, handing him tools and offering gentle conversation. She told him stories from her childhood, simple memories that made him laugh. When they finished, Caleb climbed down from the attic and wiped his hands. "No more traps," he said with confidence. Alina smiled. "Thank you." Later, they repainted a section of the cabin wall where water had leaked years ago. Alina enjoyed dipping the brush into the paint, smoothing it across the wood. Caleb watched her quietly, appreciating the way she brought color into the space not just with paint, but with her presence. As the day went on, the cabin began to feel more alive. It wasn't just a place Caleb lived in anymore. It was a place being shaped by two people. When evening arrived, Caleb prepared a simple dinner: vegetable stew and bread. They ate at the small wooden table, facing each other. The light from the lamp flickered gently between them. Alina looked thoughtful as she broke a piece of bread. "You know," she said quietly, "I thought I would feel strange after yesterday. I thought fear would follow me, and does it?" Caleb asked. She shook her head slowly. "No, because when I think of yesterday, I don't think of the trap. I think of how you helped me, how carefully you held me, how you stayed beside me the whole time." Caleb felt his breath catch. He lowered his gaze, but Alina continued. "I came here hoping for a peaceful life," she said. "And even though our first hours were frightening, I feel peace now, with you." Caleb looked up, meeting her eyes. They were warm and honest. "I want you to feel safe," he said simply. "More than anything." "I do," she whispered. The soft hush between them carried more meaning than any long sentence could. After dinner, they stepped outside to watch the sunset. The sky turned orange, then pink, then a deep, calm purple. The air smelled fresh from the storm, and grass shimmered under the fading light. Alina wrapped her shawl around her shoulders. Caleb offered her his coat, but she shook her head. "You'll get cold," she said gently. "I can manage," he replied with a small smile. They stood side by side, watching the colors change slowly. "Caleb," Alina said softly, after a long silence. "Yes, I want to stay," she said. "Not because of the arrangement, not because of the letters, but because I feel something here, something good." Caleb took a slow breath. Her words touched something deep inside him. "I feel the same," he said. "I didn't expect it, but I do." Alina smiled, a shy but sincere smile. Caleb hesitated, then spoke with quiet courage. "Would you like to build a life here with me? Not rushed, not forced, just a life we choose together." Alina's eyes softened. She nodded slowly. "Yes, Caleb, I would like that." In that moment, the ranch no longer felt lonely. The cabin no longer felt empty. The future no longer felt uncertain. Everything felt alive. Everything felt possible. As the last light faded behind the hills, they stood together, to people who had met during a storm but found calm in each other. The rancher had waited for his bride. He had found her in a moment of fear. But from that moment grew something gentle, steady, and full of hope. A new beginning. A shared life. A home built from trust, warmth, and quiet love.